Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second annual Web TV Trailblazers Summit of 2014. Yes, year number 2. Let me say a big aloha and howdy from Texas. And we're joined here with Joanna Gaskell from Canada, which is really cool. Joanna is the writer, producer, director, and actor, probably a whole lot of other things too, for the web series Standard Action, which is a fantasy with a little bit of a comedy twinge to it. It's really cool. And I just want to say welcome, Joanna. Are you there, Joanna?
Thank you.
Oh. Yes, tell everybody a little bit about Standard Action first.
Sure. Well, I'm the producer and, co-producer this year, writer, and one of the lead actors on Standard Action. I'm actually not our director. Rob Hunt is our director.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Okay. It's all right. Standard Action is a fantasy comedy, like you said. It's very much got its roots in fantasy role-playing, so Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy video games and that kind of thing. One of our taglines is we're kind of like Lord of the Rings, only funny. So yeah, we're definitely bizarre. We're definitely campy. We bill ourselves as for all ages, so we actually have a kid following as well as an adult following.
Oh,
and we've been going for quite a few years now. We're just post-producing our 3rd season.
Congratulations. I was going to ask you how many seasons you had up.
Mm-hmm.
And what other projects are you working on?
Well, at the moment, I'm directing and editing and filming and hosting a show called Starlit Citadel Reviews, which is a board game review show, which is produced by Starlit Citadel, which is a board game company based in Vancouver. Well, we have many episodes, over 100 episodes now for Starlit Citadel, and that's a really different project because it's not narrative. It's direct to camera. It's a review show, so it's fact based. You're not following a storyline, so I'm doing 2 very different things, both in the same sort of nerdy world, but they're very different. So it's an interesting combination of skill sets that I get to use all the time, which is pretty great. Besides that, I'm an actor in Vancouver, so I'm an improv artist. So I do live improv at the moment. I also do voice acting and TV and film as well.
All right. Wow. Busy.
Yes. Always busy.
Well, Joanna is here sharing her time to let us all know about the post-production process for independence. So go ahead, Joanna. Tell us a little bit about post-production and how you can do that with high quality on what's usually a low budget.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, if people are sort of just starting out to the new media industry and coming in and making their own stuff and coming up with ideas and writing and producing and being multi-hyphenates, like people doing a lot of jobs, then post-production is often something that you don't really think about right away because you need to get your pre-production out of the way. So you need to do your writing and your location scouting and your costume design and all that stuff and your casting. And then you have your production, which is your on-set fun stuff. So the cameras are rolling and you're collecting the sound and you're directing the actors and getting the performances and pulling the big day and getting all the footage. But then after that there's post-production. So post-production is basically everything that happens after that point. So everything that happens after you've collected all of your footage and all of your audio and everything's done, everything's in the can, but now you have all of this stuff that you need to do something with. And I've seen a lot of projects that they don't think about that, and it's unfortunate because their project doesn't turn out as well as it could if they'd thought about it beforehand. So first of all, I'll go through what's involved in post-production generally. If you're dealing with sort of a web series, which probably most of our viewers are sort of involved with, then post-production usually includes, first of all, layout. So taking all of your footage, picking your clips and your audio, and figuring out how your episode or how your short film or how your piece is going to flow. So what shots are going to be used, what performances are going to be used. You're going to have to go through all of your footage and pick the stuff you want and then cut it together in an editing program so that you have a big strip, big timeline. That leads you to picture lock, what's called picture lock. So when you get to that point where you're happy with how it looks and you're happy with the flow, then you basically stop editing the picture, and that's going to be your final product. Then that goes to the visual side, so the color correction, what's sometimes called mastering. So basically taking your footage and color grading it, so putting all the clips into the same sort of color scheme, adding color if you want to add a particular look or particular feel to your show or to your episode, adding things like vignettes if you want a vignette, or making sort of image edits, sort of light image process. That is visual effects. So visual effects can be anything from image correction, like if you had your boom mic in shot or something and you need to get that out, that's a visual effect. Visual effect could also be an explosion. It could be something as small as, you know, in standard action we have like a badger. At one point there's a badger that shows up on screen. That's a visual effect. We couldn't get a real badger, so we needed to do one as a visual effect.
There are no badgers out there looking for work, huh?
No. Their agents are really tough. Yeah, it's hard to get them to work. Or yeah, really big things, really big explosions, energy. You know, as a fantasy show, we're faced all the time with those big choices as to how many visual effects are you going to do. Then you've got sound, which is the other side of the package, which is just as important. And a lot of the times I see low budget or no budget series forget about sound because it's not quite so flashy. But having really good
important though. Oh my God, it can really make or break.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, something can look absolutely beautiful, and then you know, as soon as somebody starts speaking, you realize that no real post sound has been done, and it just, unfortunately, it really ruins the experience. So you kind of have to be aware of that. So post-production sound, there's a few different things that happen there. One of them is basically dialogue editing. So you'll take the dialogue, your sound post-producer will make sure it's all at the same volume level, make sure it's all working properly, make sure it cuts well together. So that's one. Another one is Foley and sound effects. So every time something happens on screen that requires a sound that you didn't capture on the day, that needs to be added in. So that's called Foley. Foley is added in sound effects afterwards. And then on top of that, there's composing. So if you want music in your show, you're going to need that in sound post as well. So there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into post-production. And if you're on a no-budget or a low-budget scenario, you're probably going to end up with people who are doing a lot of different things. If you've got somebody on your team who's doing a post-production task, as well as a production task or a pre-production task, you have to really be aware, as a producer or as somebody who's in charge of a show, that post-production is often lonely, and it often takes a lot of time. So,
I was going to say, would you say it probably takes a lot more time than actually shooting?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, goodness. Yeah, entirely. For a shoot day that's, you know, a 12-hour shoot day, which is a long shoot day, but oftentimes people go longer than that. You know, you're going to end up, say, with, I don't know, say you're really good on that sort of shoot day, you end up shooting 10 pages, so say 10 minutes of a show. That 10 minutes, which took you 10 or 12 hours to shoot it, is going to take you, depending on the complexity of the show, it might take you hundreds of hours in post-production to polish it up and add the visual effects and get the sound done. And hours are usually spent by a single person alone in an office staring at a computer screen. So if you are the kind of production who can't pay those people or who can pay them very little, then it's really important to appreciate how much time and how much effort goes into that. Visual effects are incredibly nitpicky. A lot of times people who aren't really involved in the post-production process don't understand exactly how many hours those take. little tiny, tiny, tiny finicky work that takes hours and hours. And people who do it are, if they really love what they're doing, they're going to spend the time and they're going to take the time to do it. So it's really important to appreciate them somehow. If you can't pay them, then at least show them that you appreciate them, and definitely don't rush them. I mean, if they need time, because if you can't give them money, then they're going to need extra time. So never underestimate the amount of time that post-production takes.
Yes, actually, there was a project I worked on in 2002. They just finished post. We're talking 7 years, but it's a Star Trek based thing, so there's lots and lots of technical stuff. Yeah, we're just having the premiere November 1st, so yeah, it can take a while. We have no money to pay for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so many projects get stuck in post. I mean, you see somebody runs a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or something and gets the money and then and films the show, does the pre-production, gets the end of the filming. You're like, yes, I got all the filming done. Then they have no money left for post, and all of a sudden, everything grinds to a halt. I mean, you can't release a project without post-production. So many projects get stuck there. So
what would your advice be for that? With the crowdfunding and everything, how much should you at least set aside for post, like a percentage?
For a percentage, well, I mean, it depends on what you're paying for. If you're in the situation where you have to pay for hours, like if you actually have to pay for labor for people who are doing your visual effects and your color mastering and your sound post, then yeah, easily a third of your budget should go into post-production. If you're not paying for labor and for hours, there's not as many expenses in post-production. You don't have to do, you don't have to feed people. You don't have to buy costumes and props and that kind of thing. So a lot of the costs are hidden. So you kind of have to, if you're going to pay for labor and hours, then easily a third should go into post-production, and that's really hard to do because it's a hidden thing at the end that's not flashy and it's not big and it's not exciting, and having that money just sitting there waiting for you to get to post-production is hard to do. It's really hard as a producer to look at that chunk of cash when you're trying your best to get a location secured for a shoot day, or you really want that extra bit of money to go to a costume that you really think is important, or you really want to build an extra set or something. But try your best to keep that chunk of money aside and wait however long it takes. I mean, in your case it took years. Sometimes it takes years to get to that stage, but it's really important to have the funds there, because the last thing you want is to just get stuck, is to just get completely held up. Even if you have the kind of situation where you've got somebody who says, whenever you filmed it last year, says, I'm going to do your color mastering and your visual effects for free. I love your project. I love it. I'm going to do it for free because I believe in what you're doing. A year later, when you get there, they can no longer afford to do that. They are broke. They can't pay their rent. They say, I would love to, but I need to take this job. And what can you say? You can't say you promised me. No, you can't say that. So having a little bit of extra money set when you start can see at the end of it all, for sure.
This project I'm talking about, which is Starship Exeter, by the way, how they did it was they broke it up in like 4 sections, and I guess every couple of years they come out with another finished section. So I guess I should qualify it by saying the 4th section is finally done. So it actually has been on section by section, with getting all that post and everything done for each section. So it was kind of cool though, because there's a huge following now, everyone waiting for this thing to get done. But that's how they managed to do it. They broke it up into sections, so people are still seeing it because it was done, and then they get the money up for the next section. But anyway.
Excellent. No, it's a smart plan. It can be a really big, overwhelming project if you've got, if you're trying to aim for launching a whole season. If you want to get a whole season done and then launch it, piece by piece, sometimes that can be really overwhelming when it comes to post-production labor or post-production cost. And if instead you choose to release a little bit at a time, that's sometimes that's the only way you can do it, and it's better to be releasing something than to not be releasing something and have your fans say, oh, I liked that show, I wonder whatever happened to them. You wouldn't want that to happen. So it's better to, in my opinion, it depends what kind of situation you're in, but it's better to be able to give them something at least. Yeah, because in a lot of the situations that we're dealing with here, those are the people that we're getting our money from. Those are the Kickstarter backers, and those are the Indiegogo backers. Those are the people who are donating us the cash to make the project. So oftentimes they don't understand the fact that post-production takes a huge amount of time. Because why would they? They're not in the industry. They don't understand how long it takes.
And
so
they're not supposed to, really. They're not supposed to understand. They don't need to.
It's the magic, right? They don't need to understand that. So being able to feed them a little bit, or get what you can out is important for sure. We need to remember who paid for this thing, who's watching. So.
Right. So post-production is actually the only phase of this industry that I know nothing about. I know some of the words. I know it takes long. Some of the terminology, but I've never been in on it. So, in your opinion, okay, first of all, is it one person that does all the posts? Is it several people? And if it is several people or departments, which ones should you definitely probably save money for, and which ones maybe, a fan or, someone who's really a fan could do? I don't know. You understand my question?
Sure, yeah.
Hard to ask an intelligent question when I don't know anything about it. But anyway, go ahead.
I kind of used to be in your place, too. As I started out as an actor and a writer, and then when we started Standard Action, I kind of got forced into the producer role. So I was like, okay, I'm sure, I can do this. So I learned that. And then as we went on, I had to learn more about post-production because we didn't have the money to start paying people to do this job. So we had to sort of do it all ourselves. So Rob and I, who are sort of the co-creators of Standard Action, basically did everything in the beginning. In season one was a labor of love. It was completely paid for by us. We didn't have any funding for it or anything like that. So we did it all ourselves, and we learned a huge amount about what works and what doesn't work in post-production. I would never, ever tell anybody that you should not try to do it all yourself. Because I'm an indie filmmaker, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't try to do it all yourself. Because you could if you wanted to. However, that being said, there is a lot to be done. So if you feel like you want to get something out a little faster, or you feel like you don't have the time to do it all, or maybe you just aren't interested in developing those skills, then a post-production team or at least a couple of key players might help you out. The first step, which is sort of the layout and the editing, the sort of creation of the picture lock, is a really, really powerful step. So if you were to find somebody to help you do that, make sure that you really trust them or you really work closely with them, because what they're doing basically is they're taking the stuff that you made on the day, and they are picking the performances, they are picking how the story is told. So if you wrote it and it's your baby, you create it and you love it, they have a lot of power there. So you either have to really get your hands in there and make sure that you understand them and they understand you and they understand what you're trying to do, the story you're trying to tell, or you have to learn how to do it yourself. As an actor, I would really recommend learning how to edit. It is incredibly helpful just to understand how performances work and how the editor takes your performance and cuts it together with other people's performances. It actually helps you act a whole lot better. As a producer as well and as a writer, I would say being able to edit your own stuff is incredibly useful because you can tell exactly the story that you want to tell. Oftentimes when you're dealing with indie production, you have to move really fast on the day, of course, right? You're in a situation where you have to get 12 pages shot on this day, and there's a rainstorm, so you have to change your plans. You have to, move to a different location. You have to do whatever you need to do. Your storyboard, if you made one, is completely thrown out the window because, you had to move. So on the day what you got. You were there, you were paying attention, you know what you want out of it. And so if you go to the editing suite, you can make it the way you want. Performances or scenes can be made or broken in the editing suite. I've seen beautiful scenes just get completely incoherent if it goes through the wrong editor. And I've also seen shots and scenes that I've really had no faith in on the day be built in the editing suite by a good editor. So I would say that learning how to do the editing stuff yourself is probably really useful, but if you can't do that, then really find someone that you trust. And even someone that you can go and hang out in their office and sit beside them on one day to see what they've got and give them notes and work with them. It's a very, very touchy stage. It's a stage that, yeah, could change the entire story of what you're doing. So I would be really careful about that.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. I've heard that in editing, drama could easily be changed into a comedy and vice versa. So
yeah, for sure.
I didn't know what stage that was at, so I guess this is the stage you're talking about where major changes can be made that way.
Mm-hmm. Especially if on the day, you know, your director was trying a bunch of different stuff, and that's great. You know, on the day your director says, okay, let's try it this way, let's do this line differently. So you end up with all this stuff in post, and you're like, okay, well, I could choose to make this scene comedic, or I could choose to make this scene really dark, or I could choose, you know, a bunch of different ways to do this. And so there's a lot of power there, yeah, it's important to understand that, for sure.
Keeping track of scenes, too. I don't know what part of post-production that's really important. It sounds like it's probably all the parts. But I was on an indie set once where they didn't think it was important, you know, to use the clapboard and keep track of scenes. And I had to throw a fit. I'm like, you know what? I don't know who's going to be editing this. I knew this much about editing, but it will be a nightmare if you do not, you know, organize these scenes somehow. I don't know if you want to talk about that too, but
sure. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things about post-production is planning for it when you're in pre-production or in production. I mean, if you don't think about the fact that you have an editor somewhere down the line who needs to work with this footage or this audio, you're going to be in trouble when you get it to them, because yeah, if you don't use a slate, if you can't use a slate to camera what you're doing, so that at the end the editor knows what this is supposed to be and where it's supposed to go, you can get really lost. Also, if you have a visual effect or something that you're planning for a specific day, shoot for it, for sure. Like, figure out how it's supposed to look in post. Talk to your visual effects person if you already have him or her involved, which you probably should at this point. If it's a complex visual effect, it would be good to talk to them before you shoot it. Figure out exactly what they need and make sure you get it, because if you just give something to someone in the post-production process and say, okay, I need this tree to explode, and they're like, well, if you needed that tree to explode, you should have told me so we could shoot this, and you know, it's important so that they know. Audio is the same. If you are shooting in an area that's noisy, or if you're shooting in an area with a bunch of different people who are a long way apart, or if there's somebody who speaks really quietly or anything like that, make sure that you capture good, clean audio. Multi-track if possible, so you have a couple different mics going on, maybe a lav and a shotgun, something like that, so that your sound post-producer can take all of those tracks apart, see which one works best, fit them together. All of your scenes and takes should, if you're using a slate, be numbered and logged. So
even if you don't have a slate, there are times we just use paper. I wrote it down, as long as it's in there, you know.
Yep. And if you've got an extra set of hands on set, which I often didn't have, but I wish I did, to basically say, hey, could you mark this down? That take was really good. That's a good one, because if you've got somebody with a notebook there saying, oh, okay, scene 3, take 4 was really good take, that means that when the editor, you know, looks at those notes in post, they can say, okay, I'll look at that one first and see if I can make that work and see what they were going for. If it doesn't work, they can find something similar. But that's also really, really useful. So yeah, a big part of post is planning for it in production. Understand that when you're on set and you're rolling the cameras and you're having fun, because set days are often really fun, understand that you're not the final step in the process. That you know, 4 or 5 steps after you that need to handle what it is that you're collecting, and that need to be able to take your material and make something else out of it. So make their jobs as easy as possible. If it's your job down the line, then you'll thank yourself from earlier. It's such a drag when you have a whole bunch of footage in a folder and you have no idea what it is and none of it's slated. It can be very frustrating for sure. Okay, so let me see.
I'm sorry, no, I probably took you off track. Where were we?
No, that's okay. That's all right. It's good. So
we're talking about parts of, each part.
Right. We were talking about each part. Right. Okay. So after your layout's done, and you end up with this thing called picture lock, that piece, that sort of chain of clips that are all together and the sounds there, that's going to be the material for everybody else after you. So if you're doing the layout editing and you end up with a picture lock, then that picture lock is going to be required for whoever it is that's doing your visual effects, whoever it is who's doing your color correction and mastering, whoever is doing your composing, and whoever is doing your sound design and your Foley. So it's very important to not change that. So if you're doing layout editing and you come up with a picture lock, make sure that you're sure about it, because you don't want to, 2 weeks down the line after it's in somebody else's hands, say, you know what, I really think that cut should be 2 frames shorter. Like, no, don't change your picture lock. Make sure that picture lock is picture lock. It is locked. It's not going to change. Because at that point, it sort of branches off into all these, and if you adjust, then everything's going to be out of sync, which is no fun at all. So the next sort of task, if we go into the visual side, is color correction, color grading, mastering, that kind of thing. This is something that it's easy to do it in a mediocre way. So color correction is one of those things that anybody can really do with relatively cheap software. I mean, you can do it with Adobe Premiere Pro, which is, a lot of people use that. You can do it with Final Cut. But it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of hours and focus and dedication to be really good at it. So this is one of those things that you could definitely do on your own. You could probably do color correction. It's not a big deal. But if you want to do something really wacky or bizarre or interesting with your footage in terms of color and not just make it look pretty, you might want to get some advice from someone else who's got a little bit more experience with it. Feel free to, if you have the hours, just play around using sort of free color correction tools in Adobe Premiere. You can play until you find something that you like. It'll often take you a little longer if you do it that way, but I don't see anything wrong with trying to do your own color correction. I have seen some people out there who are absolutely fantastic at color correction, that it just becomes their thing. There are some people who are they just click with it, and it becomes the thing that they want to get right, and they want all the details to be really specific. Rob does our color correction, and I would say that he's incredibly talented at it. I mean, he's incredibly talented at a lot of things, but I would say that color mastering and color grading is one of his hugest strengths, and there are people like that out there.
Well, that's one thing I definitely noticed about standard action. It's just visually beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely, and our cinematography is great.
Stunning, really.
But color grading, goes a long way, especially if you have a lush forest like we've got going on. And for standard action, we tend to go bright with the colors. I mean, all of our characters have a different color theme to them. There's definite color choices going on in the costumes and the makeup and all that kind of stuff. And so having really significant and really interesting color grading really builds that world for us. I mean, we're kind of cartoony in that way. We're all the vibrant colors. So it's been really, really useful to have Rob on board. Of course he's on board, he was a creator, but have Rob develop those skills to really bring up the color. So if you want to go for something really vibrant like that, either put in the hours, put in the time to learn it, because you totally can, or get some advice from somebody who has done something like that. If you do look at a web series and you're like, wow, that's some amazing color, or wow, that's really bright and pretty, I want to know how to do that, you know, write to the people. Indie filmmakers are often willing to talk to you about what they do or what software they use, or help you out. Even if it's just writing you an email, it might be very helpful. So yeah, I mean, basically layout and color correction, you can sort of attempt to try to do it yourself, and I would encourage you to try to do it yourself. Once you move on from there and you get into visual effects, depending on how complicated they are, can be incredibly challenging. And one of the things as a writer that you should always understand is that just putting one line in your script that indicates a visual effect can equate to 100 hours in post. So be very careful as to what you ask for when you're asking for specific things in your script.
Here's some examples of what a visual effect would be. And is that the use of either green or blue screen?
It can be, sure. So yeah, one of the kinds of visual effect that you can have is green screening. So that's basically when you take the background behind your actor or the floor or a piece of the background and black it out with green. So you put green tape over it or green material over it. And then in post-production, they take out that green stuff and put something else in. So, for example, if you were dealing with, like, you know, a sci-fi web series where you had maybe a control panel or something like that, or a view screen. You've got a view screen in front
our
of you.
view screen was always green screen.
So you've got a star field that you want outside. You want in your scene, your captain walks up to the window and looks at the stars going by. Okay, well, you know, obviously you can't do that practically. So what you're going to need to do is green screen out that window, and then your visual effects person, supervisor, technician will come over, take out the green, and put in the star field, and it'll be moving, and it'll be complicated for sure. And doing that is complicated by a number of different things. So if you are doing a green screen, for example, ask your visual effects artist how to shoot it. If you've got somebody passing in front of your green screen, that's going to make it really complicated, especially somebody with hair. It's hard to cut around hair. Or if you've got a moving camera, for instance, moving camera with a green screen, that makes it really complicated too, because then all of a sudden they have to track that green around, so that's complicated as well. So if you're locked off on a tripod and nobody's walking in front of your green screen, well, that makes it a lot easier. So little things like that. But again, ask your visual effects artist. See what exactly he or she can do and what they need and what they would like. Oftentimes if you're dealing with indie stuff and you're using a visual effects artist who's maybe a recent graduate or they want to up their portfolio, ask them what they want to do. Say, okay, we're doing a sci-fi web series. Is there anything that you want for your portfolio that would work in a sci-fi web series? Can I write anything or shoot anything for you that would increase your knowledge and your portfolio that you would like to do? Because the thing is, if you ask them that, then they're going to want to do a really good job of that shot for you, because it's not just for you, it's also for them, and it's also for their portfolio. So if they do an excellent job of that green screening, and they want to show off that they can do it on a moving camera with somebody crossing in front of it, then great, fantastic. Ask them first. It might take a few extra hours, but the quality of the result is going to be impressive, probably, if you're ending up with somebody that you trust that can do a good job. So that's one. So yeah, green.
Yeah, that's a good idea to ask someone who needs a portfolio piece. That's excellent. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, no, that applies to anything really. I mean, I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but even if you've got say a composer who's starting out and he or she really wants to write a specific kind of music, then you can say, okay, well, let's write a scene like this, and you can score it and you know, make it a portfolio piece for yourself. And that the same sort of thing will happen is they'll probably work really hard on it, and they'll probably be really grateful to you for giving them the opportunity to being able to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with writing something in an indie environment in order to use the strengths and the interests of your crew, because everybody benefits. There's no reason to force them to do, what you want in your specific little narrow field of view. No, write something for them. It's probably going to make your show better. So other kinds of visual effects. Visual effects can be gunshots. That's one that comes up a lot in web series and in sort of action shows. You basically have your fake airsoft gun or whatever, and your actor is pretending like it's being shot. Well, the muzzle flash will probably have to be a visual effect. If it hits a wall or if it hits the floor or anything like that, it's going to have to be a visual effect. Again, make sure that you're shooting with that in mind. Make sure that you're shooting to allow the visual effects artist to do that properly or in a way that they can handle. Sometimes you end up with footage that really frustrates and confuses the visual effects artist. They're not sure what you want or what they were supposed to do. So be really clear about what your shot list is and what you need. Other things, the kind of stuff that we do in our fantasy show. People disappearing and reappearing, that's definitely a visual
yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I'm not a visual effects artist, but one of the things that we often have to do is if you want somebody to disappear out of a scene, you film the scene and then you lock off all of your cameras, make sure that they're all frozen, nobody's going to move them, clear whoever it is out of the scene, and then keep recording. So you've basically got a set piece with them not in shot and with them in shot, so you can cut them together with an explosion or a poof of smoke or whatever it is that you need to make them disappear. Yeah, there can be little things too, little tiny things. Like I was saying, if you're doing like the Starlit Citadel reviews, one of the things that I had to do was cut boom mics out of shot. If you end up in a situation where you have a mic in shot, so you're doing there's a big wide scene, and then your boom mic sort of just peeks down from above there. There's just this little shot, and you're like, oh, mic in shot, but it was a great shot, and it was a great performance, and you want to use it. Well, you can probably, if you've got a talented visual effects artist, cut that mic out of there. Only ask them to do it if you absolutely have to, of course, but if you have to, sometimes visual effects are repair. Sometimes it's not big, exciting explosions or people disappearing or gunshots. Sometimes it's, can we fix that? Can we fix that mistake that we made? It's unfortunate that sometimes that happens, but sometimes it happens. And at least you have that option. One of the jokes on set, of course, which I'm sure that many people out there have heard, is fix it in post. That is not ever something that I would ever want to hear from anyone ever.
Right. It's really not practical. It's really not practical. It is just
no. If you had something in shot that shouldn't be in shot, like we were shooting out in the woods in season 2 for Standard Action, and it just turned out that at some point we wandered into a paintball range. So on one of the trees, there's paintball marks, there's paint on the tree, and you can either, when you're looking through your lens and your two people are talking to each other and you notice up behind them, you're like, oh crap, there's paint on that tree. This is a fantasy world, I can't have paint on the tree. Well, you can either move your actors and reshoot the scene, which will take you an hour, maybe less, maybe more, but or you can tell the post-producer, oh, fix that in post, and it could take many hours, many hours, because they have to remove it from every shot. They have to, if it's a moving camera, that makes it even more complicated. So don't fix it in post. If you can fix it just in production, fix it in production. Just reshoot that, get another take without, the offending mic or the offending paintball or whatever it is. It's always cheaper and easier to fix it in production than it is to fix it in post, for sure.
Yeah, that's been my experience with, mics in, shadows. I mean, it's terrible, especially, when you're on set looking at it, it's like, okay, again, we got to do it again. I mean, we never say fix it in post, just shoot it again.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a danger sign when I, if I'm going on set as an actor and I'm not involved in the production side at all, I'm just there to act, just there to do my job. And you walk on set and you hear somebody say, "Oh, we'll fix it in post." Oof, that's a bad sign. That's
You say it seriously?
yeah, really? I'll do it again. Can I just do it again? Like, yeah.
Wow. That's scary. It is almost Halloween, though.
True. Yeah. Okay, so what do we now? Okay, so we're now at visual effects. Visual effects take a lot of time. Give them some examples. Okay, so now what's going on at the same time as the mastering and the visual effects is the sound side. So you've got somebody, could be you, doing your dialogue editing and doing your Foley and your sound effects and doing your composing. This again, there are free audio editing programs out there. Audacity is a good one. I mean, it's pretty simple and light, and it doesn't have a huge amount of options in it, but it's good. You will end up with okay audio if you use Audacity. I don't have the budget to use a sound post-producer for Starlit Citadel's dialogue. I did have somebody build the music for me, but I don't have anybody to do dialogue, so I do it myself in Audacity, and it's okay. It's fine. It's not exceptional. It's not amazing, but it's fine. It's a review show. All you need to do is be able to hear what people are saying and have it be clear and have it not be annoying, and it does that. That's fine.
Yeah, and bad sound will be very annoying. It'll really throw people out of the show.
Yep, absolutely. And again, it's sound is one of those things that is often people don't think about it. People think about the visuals and the visual effects, and when it comes to post, they often don't think about sound. And it really does make or break your project. It kills me when I go to a web festival screening and I see this beautiful web series up on this huge screen with crystal clear picture and gorgeous color and visual effects, and the audio isn't compressed, or there's you can hear traffic, or it's noisy, or you can hear the cuts. That's another one too, is if you're watching a web series or a short film or a film and you can hear the cuts. So like, when your visuals go from a wide to a close, you can hear something in the audio. That means probably the post-production, either it wasn't done on the audio or it wasn't done by somebody who knew what they were doing. One thing that's always involved in audio, and it's involved early on as well, is syncing. So syncing is basically taking your production audio, so the audio that was recorded off of your separate audio device. Please record on a separate audio device, by the way, if you do want good audio. If you're just recording a video log or something, no problem. Just record on camera audio. Who cares? But if you want really nice sound, if that's a goal of yours for your web series or your short, to have good sound, always record on a separate audio device. There are relatively cheap ones out there. You can do pretty well. For maybe a couple $100, you can get yourself an okay one. If you spend a little more, of course, it'll get a bit better, but you don't have to spend too much. It just makes sense to put a little bit more effort into collecting that sound properly. You will thank yourself later. So syncing is taking that production audio off of that separate device and matching it with the visuals. So if you've got people talking on camera, and if you've got on-camera audio and you can hear it, you want to be able to take the production audio, match it up with the visuals so it sounds exactly the same. You don't have any lagging. Everybody's words are synced up, that kind of thing. Pluralize is a fantastic program for doing this. If you've got a camera that gives you on-camera audio, like a DSLR, which a lot of people use for web series, then you can use this program called Pluralize to sync your production audio with your camera audio. This is really, really important, and you can do it yourself, for sure. So that means that you can give your sound post-producer or whoever it is who's doing your sound a properly synced file. If you don't give them a properly synced file, you can ask them to sync it for you, but it's going to take them a lot of time, and it's going to be an annoying job, and they're probably not going to like you very much if you can't pay them for it. So if you can learn how to do it yourself, that's really, really helpful. for sure.
And where does ADR fit in there? We actually have a question here by the Bear 2 Show. The Bear 2 Show wants to know, what technique would you suggest for dubbing voiceover using puppets or toys?
Okay. Well, that would be ADR, though a non-traditional sort of form of ADR. ADR, for anybody out there who doesn't know, is, I don't even know what ADR stands for, actually, but what it is basically is overdubbing. If you've got production audio that isn't very good.
Audio dubbing recording, I think, is what it means.
Okay, something like that, or yeah. I'll ask my sound guy. Yeah, okay.
Google it while you're talking.
So what it basically is if you end up in post with audio that doesn't work, so if it's full of traffic noise, or there's a siren that goes through it, or it just was not audible, you can't hear it, you don't like it, and you bring your actors in again to watch the picture cut on a screen and say their lines again in line with their own mouths. It's very challenging. Some actors are better at it than others, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not a good thing to do. You end up with a loss of performance. If you don't have the actual audio that's captured in the moment, it's not going to be as good as doing it in ADR. Unfortunately, ADR is done a lot. A lot of times people don't pay attention on set or during the actual production. They don't pay enough attention to sound, and they end up in post with not very good sound, and they have to ADR a lot of it, and that's a real shame. I avoid it as much as possible. So if you're doing something though with puppets or with like a non-human something on your screen that has a mouth that is moving, yeah, I mean you do it the same way. Basically, you'd set it up with a monitor, so a laptop or a screen or something with a playback, and you'd get your actor set up in front of a microphone. Depending on what kind of sound quality you want, you could use a shotgun microphone, which is the kind of boom mic that you'd use on set. If you wanted to go cheaper, sort of in studio, you could use something like a Yeti, like a Blue Yeti is like a voiceover microphone. You could do something like that. You can hook it straight up into your computer. If you're doing this on a low budget, yeah, hook it straight up into your laptop, open up Audacity, and just get them to read their lines or say their lines along with the mouth of the puppet on screen. You're going to have to do quite a few takes, I would say, although most actors, once they get into the swing of it, it goes faster and faster and faster. So their first line might be a real struggle trying to get them to say it in time with the mouth of the puppet on screen, but after a while they will get into the swing, and you'll be able to get it, get those lines out and matched up pretty easily. And then after that, basically what you've got is a sound file with all of your takes or all of your lines in there. Chop out what you want, and then create a wave and place it in your timeline. So you should be okay with just exporting it from whatever editor you've got. I would say it's probably. I mean, obviously there's the basic rules for recording audio. So you want to be in a really quiet place, place with not much echo. If possible, turn off your fridge. Make sure you're not sitting beside a highway or having planes passing overhead. If you need to take a third or fourth or fifth take, do it, because it's much easier to do it when you've got the actor there.
Wow, Joanna, this is amazing. I had no idea. I mean, I just learned a whole bunch right there. I Googled ADR, and I was only right about the D. It is automatic dialogue replacement.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense.
Or automated or automatic dialogue replacement. There we go.
Okay.
I'm fooled now.
Yeah, I don't like doing ADR for sure. It's not. Yeah, it kills me really, because it's you get these beautiful performances on set in the moment. You've got the actors working with each other, with the director, and you got these really intense moments, and then you look at your footage in post and you're like, oh, we have to do ADR. No, and you bring them in, and it's really hard to get them to that place again. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. So again, try to record as clean audio as possible on the day. There have been our sound designer and dialogue editor and composer, Kirsten Tennert, is a fantastic guy, really, really smart, and he says that there have been so many projects that he's been involved in where he's basically been called in to rescue the audio. So if you're in a situation where you've got audio that just isn't working, you're looking at it in post and you're banging your head against the wall and you can't figure out what to do, the people who have actually gone through audio programs and audio recording programs, they have a lot of skills that it would take you a really long time to learn. I would recommend, visual effects is probably something you're going to have to find somebody for if you don't have somebody on your team who's really good at it. Sound, I would recommend maybe just even give it to somebody to do a quick pass. You've got it all synced up, you've got it sort of how you want it, but you're not quite sure if it's as good as it could be. Find somebody to do just a quick pass over your audio. And again, if you're in the situation where you can't ADR, your actor flew to Texas, and you can't do it, then you don't have that option, and you're going to have to take the audio that you got on the day and see if you can rescue it. And a lot of times, those people, those sound designers and those sound recordists and audio post producers out there might be able to save you. So it's good to know a couple. Good sound designers. It's funny. Good sound post producers are hard to find. So if you find one, you hold on to them and you pass them around to all your friends. You say, you need sound post, here, use this guy. He's good.
I know. I have. They're like gold or platinum.
They are, yes.
I know one like that. So good. He doesn't come free anymore. So.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? I mean, it's a lot of work. Again, you don't really realize how much time it takes. If you've got, for instance, we've got in standard action, we have people, like my character wears chainmail, and the chainmail that I have on me in the show is aluminum, so it sounds really light. It doesn't often get captured on the sound very well. It doesn't get picked up. So when I move in the show, all of that movement noise is post-produced. So that's basically, our sound designer, Kirsten, going in and layering a whole bunch of different kinds of sounds on top of each other to create that noise of my character moving. It's amazing how much time and effort goes into every single sound. And a lot of those people who are really into it are really nerdy about it, so they really want to get it right. So they can spend, many hours making your gunshot sound exactly like the gun that it should be, not just some random gun. It sounds exactly like the gun you were firing, and it's amazing. Again, the amount of time that you'd have to put in, starting from ground zero, to do the kind of stuff that they do is would be huge. Not saying that you couldn't try to do audio yourself. Again, simple programs like Audacity, you can pull it off yourself. Absolutely, you can do it. If you want to pump it up a grade, like if you want to make it really beautiful sounding, if you're going to screen it in a theater with a big theater sound, with a crowd of people there, you might want to have somebody else help you with the sound. We learned a lot out of Season 1. Season 1 we did our own sound, and it's fine, but it's not fantastic. And then we got somebody to help us out for Season 2 and Season 3, and it's just production value has gone up noticeably just because of the sound. There's a lot of other things that have improved as well, but sound is important.
Yeah, your sound, your colors, yeah, it's really a good experience to watch standard action. So one of the other annoying things I find when I watch web series is echoes. Like I guess there's not enough furniture in the room or something, and so there's all this echoing from the voices, and when they walk across, can that be fixed in post?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes there's basically just sort of the room noise. So whatever room that you're filming in had a particular quality to it. Maybe the walls were concrete or something, and you end up with this room noise. A lot of it can be sort of mitigated a little bit by doing sort of a noise removal or using plugins in your audio software that will get rid of some of that. However, not all of it. If you're filming in, for example, like a warehouse, big warehouse with a concrete floor, with, like you say, not much furniture, the walls are bare, you are going to end up with a particular sound quality that you are not going to be able to get rid of. It's going to be noticeable in post. You're not going to be able to make that sound like a comfy, cozy living room if you're filming in a warehouse. There are certain things about the collection of the sounds, like the recording of the sound, that you just can't get around. I mean, it's the same as saying with your visuals, fix it in post. If you say fix it in post with your audio, it's the same. You can do a little bit. You can maybe pull those echoes down a little bit, maybe thicken up the sound a little bit to make that not quite so noticeable, but when it gets right down to it, if you're trying to make it sound like you're not filming in a warehouse, try not to film in a warehouse.
Yes, if it hurts when you touch it, don't touch it. Okay.
Right. Good rule. Good rule. Yeah.
So do we have we covered all the aspects, or because I really don't know? It's like it sounds like I'm pretty cool with the sound. What's anything next?
Well, the only thing that's left that's on my list really is composing. So music. There is a lot of royalty-free music out there. Make sure if you are posting your show on the web, you don't use music that has royalties attached to it. YouTube will have a problem with you, and will probably get you to take it down, especially if the person whose music it is notices. You will have to take it down, and that's heartbreaking when you put up something that you've worked so hard on and you have to just take it down and lose all those great views that you got. And getting somebody to actually do composing work for you is amazing and fantastic. Of course, that costs. So if you are going to do, royalty-free stock music, spend the money. Go out and buy like a CD of however many tracks of royalty-free music so that you can use it. Of course, if you're spending the money on that, you may be able to find a composer, like I say, sort of just out of school or trying to improve their portfolio, who would be willing to score for you. If you've got somebody scoring for your show, you will also end up with a really nice score that fits your story, and it's specific to your jokes and your emotional moments, and it really can create an extra layer to your storytelling to have really well-made music. So it's worth considering. If you're going to be spending the money on royalty-free music anyway, it might be worth looking. Composers they love what they do and they love to work. So you can often find somebody who's willing to create something amazing and original and beautiful for you for not very much money, just because they're like actors. I mean, actors love to work. We love to act. If you give us a good script, we'll do it for free. If you give them a good movie or a good web series, they may do it for cheap just because they say, this needs a particular kind of music, and I know what it needs, and I'll do it for you. And so it's all about it's all about giving them something back. If you can't do it, if you can't give them money, then give them an exciting experience or the appreciation, or give them publicity. Publish the stuff that they're doing. Talk about what they're doing. Do a blog post on your website about your composer and what they do. Anything like that. Music.
And how about their portfolio also? I mean, there's so much good indie music out there, and I'm in Austin, Texas. That's like a music capital. So yeah. Getting a original score with just a little bit of effort shouldn't be too hard, and it could be win-win on both sides. I can see your point there.
For sure, yeah. So I guess, that's sort of briefly all the stages. I guess sort of the most important thing to keep in mind with post is, paying attention to it before you even start. So keeping it in mind before you start, and understanding that it's a pipeline. So understand that, your production needs to create materials for your post people to deal with, and every different step of your post-production needs to be communicating to the step before, and they all need to be working together. They all need to have probably one person in charge, I would say. If you've got a post-production team, there should be a post-production lead who's communicating with everybody involved and making sure that everybody's on track, hitting deadlines, everybody's got the files they need. It's important to remember that even in post, you're still part of a team. So everybody is relying on everybody else to get it done.
Wow, this is a whole lot of really wonderful information. On G Plus, Reality Crowd TV says great information, everyone. They had to go, but they said it's helping me as we create our web series. Big smiley face. Nice
Good.
work, Joanna Gaskell.
Good. Thank you. Good. Well, good. I'm glad that, us indie filmmakers have to sort of share the knowledge. We don't have any money, so yeah.
Oh, share the knowledge, share the labor, share everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, is that it? Have you told us all of your secrets?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're at an hour. Is there anything else you want me to cover? Is there any questions?
Any other questions? So, I mean, this was great. I mean, this is very, very generous. Very generous of you to give. I mean, I'm sitting here not really saying anything because I'm sitting here soaking it up myself. So I'm going to be watching the replay myself.
Well,
because I knew enough stuff, because you have to know some stuff, like you mentioned, when you're shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're writing the script, in pre-production, everything, you have to know some of that stuff. But, yeah, I learned a whole lot more, especially about the puppet thing. I didn't realize it was that involved to get it talking, stuff, ADR'd up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's people appreciate it when the producer does know. That's one thing too. Is that when you've got a post-production team who's doing sound and visual effects and color correction, they really, really appreciate it if the producer understands at least somewhat of what's going on, like just a general idea of the process. Because if you've got a producer who just wants to get it done and just wants to send it off to those people and just have them finish it and get it back to them, it's hard to work with people like that, and you don't, those producers don't understand the amount of time and the effort and like I was saying, like lonely. It is a lonely job sometimes, sitting in front of your computer for 20 hours editing a visual effect. Like, it can be hard work, and if you've got a producer who appreciates that and can engage in the conversation when your sound post producer or your color master or whatever comes to you and says, okay, this is my problem that I'm having, and has a conversation with you, if you can understand at least somewhat of the terminology and what they're talking about, then that's going to really help you. And it's going to help pull that post-production team together and just make for a generally better working experience. And in indie film and indie web production, you really need to cultivate that, because we're not in the kind of situation where you can just throw money at somebody and say get it done. You can't. You have to work with them. It has to be a team effort. So it's good. It's good to know this stuff, and I'm always constantly learning, more every day. So.
Well, wow, thank you, Joanna. I mean, it is such a pleasure to have you back again this year. I was so excited when you said you could do it.
Yeah, me too.
It was just as engaging last year. So, if you go to Rhonda Abrams on YouTube, you can catch her 2013 Web TV Trailblazers Summit presentation. It was on crowdfunding, and it was with her director and co-producer, Rob Hunt. Sorry about that, Rob, I didn't give you the right director at the beginning here. Thank you, Joanna. And tomorrow we're going to have Michael Doherty on, who is going to tell you all about the hidden opportunities in building a big Facebook fan base. And Joanna, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for anyone?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm excited to see how much new content is coming out on the web every day. So I'm so excited to be a part of that community, and yeah, keep creating stuff. I guess that's all.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Ron.
See you tomorrow. Thank you, Joanna.